Once the vehicle is safely raised and supported, use a 21mm socket, remove all 6 of your lug nuts, and remove the wheel. Before I go too far, I'm going to break free the Banjo bolt with a 14mm wrench. There we go. The reason I want to do that while the caliper is mounted is because it'll be easier to undo it when the caliper is off. Next, use a 17mm and remove the 2 caliper 2 bracket bolts. These are also your slide pins, so keep that in mind. When they come out, they'll be long. Remove your caliper. You can use a pry bar if you need to. Set it aside over here. Remove your brake pads. And with the same 17mm, remove the 2 caliper bracket mounting bolts. Leave this one in just a few threads and remove the top one. Now remove the bottom and take your caliper bracket off. The next step is going to be to add a very light layer of grease, caliper grease that is, onto the areas where the anti-rattle clips will sit. So the key here is light. You don't want a lot because it's going to get onto the rotor. You want just enough to protect this area from rust. And of course, do this to both sides. Next, take your anti-rattle clips, and you'll see that they have 2 tabs on one side. You want this tab facing outward, so away from the rotor. Otherwise, it will make contact with the rotor, and that is not good. Go ahead and line them up and lock these down. Make sure you press it all the way down. While I'm here handling grease, I'm going to go ahead and grease up the 2 ears of the caliper that make contact with the pad. This is going to help the brakes operate quietly and smoothly. And I'm also going to put a little bit of grease on the ring, outer ring of the piston here. That's going to do the same thing. It'll help prevent noise. Install your caliper bracket onto the car. Start both of your bolts in. Snug these up and torque them to 65 foot-pounds. Go ahead and insert your brake pads. And put on your caliper. Take some grease and grease up your slider pin bolts. Make sure there's plenty on there, and make sure you get up on this lip here where the boot rides. That'll help it seal it up. Do this to both slider pins. If you think you need more grease, you can always add some directly into the hole. Go ahead and snug these up and then torque these also to 65 foot-pounds. Next, remove the Banjo bolts with the 2 washers that comes attached to this caliper. Leave one of the copper washers on there. And with a collection bucket underneath, grab a 14mm and remove the old Banjo bolt. Drain your caliper. Remove the old Banjo bolt from the hose and remove the crush washers that are on the hose. Wipe it off, make sure there's no debris. Then take your new Banjo bolt, slide it through, make sure it's going the right way. Put on the other crush washer and start the hose into the caliper. Okay, that's bottomed out. This new bolt is a 12mm. Now go ahead and snug it up, make sure it's nice and tight. Once it's bottomed out, I gave it about 1/4 of a turn. That's going to crush those copper gaskets and make sure that it seals up. Next, remove your bleeder boot. And then with a 10mm, open up your bleeder screw and let this caliper gravity bleed. What that means is gravity is going to push the fluid into the caliper and push out the air. Once that's done and there's no more air, you can proceed to a full brake bleed. And the way to do a full brake bleed is you have someone in the driver's seat pumping the brake pedal. Of course, check your master cylinder and make sure that's full. Once they've pumped it 2 or 3 times, have them hold pressure on it and then open the bleeder screw and leave it open until the pedal reaches the floor. Once the pedal has reached the floor, close it, have them pump it up again, and continue until you get no more air bubbles coming out of here. The first couple bleeds, you're probably going to get air, and then it's going to stop. It's going to be just clean fluid. That's when you can close it up and top off your master cylinder. Then you'll be ready to go. Okay, I have a steady, slow drip. That's perfect. I'm going to close it up, clean off the area, and of course now this is when you would do your full brake bleed. After that's done, cap it off, make sure it's nice and snug, and let's get the wheel on. Start on all the lug nuts, bottom them out, and then torque them to 83 foot-pounds.